Welcome back to Good Morning LaLa, and we'd love to celebrate women entrepreneurs on Wealth Wednesday. Carol Tuttle's in the house. She's an author, mother, coach, influencer, and all the above, mastering affluence. How are you?
Thank
Gorgeous.
you.
Welcome
Good.
to the show.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Good to be here.
For decades, you have changed millions of lives. But what was the catalyst for you in starting this journey?
Well, I was faced with some really debilitating mental health conditions in the late 80s. I had 4 children, 6 and under, and I was not functioning. And I knew, I was co-conscious enough with my situation to know that my wounding was coming from my own family experience, and I was passing this on to my children. And I knew I was like messing them up, and I wanted to stop the crazy. And I enrolled myself in psychotherapy. I literally put myself into counseling. In the late 80s, you didn't talk about depression. You didn't talk about, you kind of just kept that story going out in front, saying, you know, if I look good, I'm achieving in the world, things are fine. But behind, you know, the privacy of your own home, I was really in the dark night of my soul. It was very scary. In fact, the therapist that I started seeing on a weekly basis gave me 2 choices. He said, I can either put you in a psych ward where you're going to get treated, or you need to hire a full-time nanny because you are not in a sound place to be able to manage your children day in and day out. And that's pretty, you know,
unsettling.
Yeah, because I had no reason or motive to want to be so dysfunctional. I knew better, yet I did not have the emotional and mental capacity to show up differently. And because of the vulnerabilities of my own childhood trauma that had never been addressed. And so those 2.5 years of psychotherapy kind of got me into the story and what's really going on here. And I wasn't going to settle for coping mechanisms. And I wasn't really oriented to medication for the rest of my life. And so I got into the alternative path very early, in the early 90s. I became a Reiki master in 1991.
Wow.
And started to pursue natural healing methods and applying them to myself. Really going that path of saying, I'm going to get well, and I'm going to find the resources, and I'm going to do whatever it takes, because my children deserve better. My marriage barely made it through this particular cycle. And I wasn't willing to settle and compromise. And so my determination has always been a great attribute to overcome. What I came to learn over the years was very much generational in my family. And there's a lot of that going on, a lot of compromise in people's lives, that we just learn to live with a certain amount of pain, just disorder in our lives, compromise in relationships, where we say, well, it could be worse, or, you know, it could look like this. And so I'm really committed to really looking at where we compromise and choosing really the skill sets to do that. And it is a skill set.
But it's so inspiring that you get so vulnerable and get so real and raw about your story. So few people do that. People talk about getting vulnerable all the time, but I think
that's why I have such a large following online, because I am willing to be honest. I think, what's there to hide?
I know, they keep their vulnerable stories like, well, I'll tell them that, but I won't really tell them that.
Yeah, well, I know what it is to suffer on so many levels and yet still live that modern American life. That's the variable. You know, there's the obvious suffering where you just are in the very lower economic experience of life. But for those of us that live in the sort of upper middle America, we look like everything's fine. And we really have that cultural, I think, overlay to say, I just have to keep looking good.
And my purse is filled with pills.
You know, yeah. And I'm one of those people that's very honest. The women you meet, you know, on the streets, the same women you meet online. Yeah. And I do think that's been a great attribute for especially my age group. I'm also very active in defying and saying I'm not going to take on the ageism culture. I'm 61 in December, and I'm really committed to just, no matter your age, you have a choice, and don't let the collective kind of stereotype determine for you. And I have a lot of young mothers that follow me, because I have another book that's very popular in the parenting genre called The Child Whisperer. And these young mothers who were 35, 36 are pitted against the social media experience that the comparative factor is over the charts. You know, I was talking to one of them the other day. I met them just in public, and I said, man, raising kids nowadays comparatively to my day,
so different.
I said, don't worry about what color your pantry is. and whatever you see on Pinterest. Be concerned about how your children feel.
Yeah. Hashtag ageism, I think, is going to be a huge movement that really is. We have 50% of Americans are over 50, and we have a lot of people are going to be going into retirement with zero funds. So it's really important. Your work is very, very important. And so tell the audience out there. By the way, I love the name of your company, Live Your Truth. It's been my motto and my mantra for years. So we're soul sisters. Tell people out there what they can do. What are the first steps if they're really struggling, whether it be mentally, financially, whatever? What are the first
Since
steps
it's Wealth Wednesday, I have I've done very well in my own life. The snippet of my story is in 1994. My husband and I were in pure debt, $45,000 in credit card debt, which would be equivalent to about $120,000 nowadays. No income. We were both unemployed, and we were now about 7-8 months into that. And I know that experience of being faced every day with financial crises, and everything else kind of falls to the wayside when you have that as your number one issue. You are dealing with that every day in your face to go, I don't have money, and I have to have money in my world. So I started to apply what I was learning in regards to the law of attraction, and that I was a creator in my life, that I actually was influencing this. And one of the first things that came to me, and it's probably the number one phrase used by people that keeps creating a lack of money. Anyone want to guess what it is? I can't afford it. The thought that you immediately come to when something's desirable to you, you're drawn to it, it's something you want, whether it's an experience, a service, a purchase, immediately the mind goes, well, I don't have the money. And we close the energy. The energy shuts down. Versus the belief that I invite people to put in place of that is I can afford to believe in it. I can afford to believe this can be mine. And the energy goes like this. So just replace that one thought, that one. Parents say it to their kids all the time because it's a way to disengage them from what they want. Well, we can't afford that, so we're not going to buy it. When that's really not accurate, and nor is it the first consideration. If something's correct for you and wants to manifest and present itself, you'll be given what you need. Your resources will, but if your energy keeps shutting down. So my husband and I realized this very early on in 1994. We have to stop saying that. And I'm really good at sort of personal vows. I stopped saying it. From that moment, I had that epiphany. I have not said it
That's great.
because I recognize what it did energetically. I mean, just for the viewers to go, try those two phrases. I can't afford it, and you'll feel kind of a collapse, versus I can afford to believe in it. Suddenly things lift.
It's everything.
Yeah.
The cognitive
It's so
reframing is
simple.
everything. Absolutely.
But it has a profound effect on what can happen for you with money.
So how can people work with you? Do you work one-on-one? Do you have groups?
Well, it's all online. I
But
am
what
the
about that?
online healer.
Yes, love that.
CarolTuttle.com. I right now have close to 1,000 clients that work with a website I launched this year called the Carol Tuttle Healing Center. My book is a companion to the website. And I've been very fortunate to understand how to take what I do, and the virtual Carol is very busy. Let's just say that.
Good to be
Virtual Carol coaching is a very busy woman.
Well,
Fantastic.
thank you for sharing your time and insight with us, and you too can afford to believe in it. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more on Good Morning La La Land.